Saw 4 takes place at the same time that Saw 3 takes place. And this is crazy. It's mind-fucking. I have never seen this done before, and I like time-traveling movies, but never have I seen two different movies take place at the same time. Do you know of any movies like this? If you do, please share it in the comments. So, Saw 3 is about this guy named Jeff whose son died, and he needs to confront different people that were in some ways involved with his son's death and court proceedings, including the judge that gave the killer a light sentence. Everybody ends up dying, but at the same time, Jigsaw and Amanda Young are locked up with a doctor who is really Jeff's wife named Lynn. Dr. Lynn operates on John Kramer, who is dying from cancer, and at the end, we find out this was really Amanda's test, but she fails, and like I said, LOL, everybody dies. In Saw 4, it is Detective Rigg who is put to the test, and he is told by Jigsaw not to do anything. He was a detective present in Saw 2. But he doesn't listen, and when he tries to save everybody, he actually ends up killing everybody, including Detective Matthews from Saw 2, who is still alive in Saw 4. Saw 4 is packed, and a lot is happening, but the important thing to know is that there are mainly two people that are playing a psychological game with each other, and those two people are Peter Strahm and Mark Hoffman. Both are police, but the detectives are now thinking that someone is helping out the Jigsaw killer, and that person ends up being Detective Mark Hoffman. Peter Strahm, the good guy, is following clues throughout the movie, and he ends up at the place where Saw 3 takes place. That moment of the movie is really confusing, but once you get it, it will blow your mind. We see Peter Strahm enter the setting of Saw 3, and we also see Jeff from Saw 3. Peter kills Jeff, and then Peter Strahm gets locked up in the room where John Kramer was murdered. It is very interesting because from here on, it becomes a battle of the wits between Peter Strahm and Mark Hoffman. Mark tries to kill Peter, but Peter survives an unbeatable trap by stabbing himself in the throat with a pen. Eventually, Mark kills Peter for good later on in the saga, but Peter was a formidable opponent for Mark. Back to Saw 4. It ends with Detective Rigg not listening to Jigsaw's warnings and instructions. He is told not to do anything and he doesn't listen. I've already talked about how Jigsaw's games are counterintuitive, and for the people to beat the games, they would need to go against their basic survival instincts because the games usually threaten and require them to sacrifice the less or the parts for the whole, like an arm or a leg or your eyeballs for your life. Most people cannot beat the games because it requires a physical and bodily sacrifice as well as a lot of pain. Detective Rigg is told not to save people because at the beginning of the movie, we see him run through a door without thinking twice. Mark Hoffman tells him not to do this, but at this point in the movie, we still do not know that he is Jigsaw's accomplice. Detective Rigg fails his test at the end and he manages to get everybody killed, LOL. And I absolutely love this part and this take that the Saw franchise manages to pull off. I mean, movies have a monopoly on the hero genre where the good guy always wins. Even though he is emotionally conflicted, he always and somehow knows what the right thing to do is. Not in Saw, man. Saw throws that shit out the window and it says, if you do not listen to me, then bad things will happen. Saw 4 is the best movie because even though Saw 1 was a mindfuck at the end when John Kramer gets up, and even thinking about it now, it gives me the creeps. Few movies have really given me the creeps, but that part where John Kramer gets up at the end of Saw 1 definitely gives me the creeps. It is absolutely awesome, and even though Saw 2 also mindfucks you when you realize that the videotapes that all of the police have been watching are old and not happening in real time, and even though you realize at the end of Saw 3 that Amanda Young was really being tested, it can be said that Saw 4 tops that off. I don't know much about the number 4 series and movies, such as the analysis that the Scream movies make on the first trilogy of a slasher, but when you get to the season 4 of a series, it is usually at its best, such as with Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead. Saw 4 is a mindfuck because you realize that Saw 3 and Saw 4 have been happening at the same time, and it makes you imagine that in this universe there were all sorts of perverse games going on trying to test people's common sense by a diabolical mind like John Kramer, who obsessively tries to justify his actions as saint-like. John Kramer is constantly reasoning with himself that people do not value their lives and must therefore be tested to see how badly they really want to live then. The moment you see Jeff in Saw 4, you know that you have been mindfucked, lol. We cannot say that Saw does time traveling, but it does play with time with regards to Saw 3 and Saw 4. We can say that Saw 4 doesn't really stand out from the rest of the Saw movies, nor is it considered the best. Saw 4 doesn't take the mind-bending to another level by introducing parallel storytelling. It is really a silent jewel, keeping its chronological place in the saga. A lot happens in both Saw 3 and Saw 4, and Saw 4 lets us know that everything was basically happening at the same time. Saw 4 just doesn't surprise viewers, nor does it reinvent itself. It stays humble, and this is what could potentially make it the best, most humble movie in any saga. Don't forget to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and explore more on ABSTRACTO. If you stayed until the end of the video, thank you. Next video will be about El equilibrio no existe.